We're here with Athletic Director Clay Chournos, wrapping up the school year. First time AD.
Yeah.
How did it go?
Well, you probably have to ask some other people a little bit, but I think it went pretty well. This year was definitely an interesting year with, especially springtime with the weather and stuff. But we had lots of different things happening this year. We had first-time football coach, new coach here, and also first time ever for him as far as the head coach goes. And we've had a little bit of a turnover with other coaches this year, and so there's come with its own set of challenges. But I think overall, the people that we have here and the people who are in place right now are doing a great job. And overall, I think that the seasons and the year went really well. Obviously, there were some things that we were super happy about as far as success on the field goes. Other things that we may have wished we were a little bit better on. And then there's some other things that I think we thought we were right where we needed to be on. So I think that's a kind of a microcosm probably of every year, to be honest with you. So
Yeah.
Had some big shoes to fill, obviously, with Van retiring. I mean, he'd been doing it for 16 years. Obviously knew exactly what to do and exactly when to do it, and so there's been a few surprises this year that we kind of got caught off guard a little bit where we didn't know what we didn't know, but I think we were able to get everything done. Everything got done on time, and so I think that overall we'll call that a success. Hopefully this next year we'll be able to expand some of the things that we want to do with our student athlete leadership team, do a little bit more of those things, include especially for athletes a little bit more. And do some fun things for the community and hopefully the little kids in the community with our elementary schools. So those are some things we want to do to expand a little bit more next year. So.
Oh, sweet. Well, I guess we'll just start. Let's just go from the fall, work our way through winter, and finish off with spring of how everything turned out. Again, some of the highs, some of the lows.
Yeah. So we start off football, obviously probably our biggest sport, actually not probably, is our biggest sport as far as, number of people that come out to watch and the gate that it draws and the tradition that it has here at Bear River High School. Coach Waite, obviously a new coach coming in, wasn't able to even get here until June of last year. And so I think with where he was able to start from and we were really competitive. I know we only won 3 games, which again, that's still 3 more than the year before.
You were in them,
yeah, and that's what I was going to say. Honestly, you look at, there was really only one game that I thought we were out of by the fourth quarter, and I think that was the Green Canyon game. Every other game we got a shot going into the fourth quarter, which is really all you ask is to have a chance to win. Sometimes you're going to be way up and you're going to win. There's other times you're going to be way down and you're going to lose. But if you can get through the third quarter knowing, hey, we got a chance right here. We got, obviously maybe you're going to have to score or keep them from scoring or doing some other things. I think that's a good indicator of us being competitive, which is what we're asking him to do. We're asking him to be competitive in our region, and we have a tough region. Green Canyon was picked to win the region, and they got hurt, and so obviously weren't as good as advertised, but they were still really good. Mm-hmm. You got Ridgeline and Skyview in the semifinal games. You got Mountain Crest who goes to Mountain Crest goes to a semifinal game. I mean, we have a really tough region. Mm-hmm. And so we were able to do some really good things there. So 3 wins, even though it doesn't seem like a lot compared to maybe where Bear River High School's been in the past. Mm-hmm. I think we have to count that as a victory. And then the other thing that goes with that is, he had his annual parent meeting about a month ago, and it was in the presentation room here, and there wasn't an open spot in the presentation room. There were people lined up on the aisles that stood, and then there was about 45 people in the hallway outside in the commons area, which tells me that there's a lot of kids that are really, really interested in the sport, coming out and playing, which is the other thing that we needed to do. We needed to get our numbers back to where we can be competitive. Because generally, our number ones can compete with anybody. But then you get down to your number, you're always going to have injuries. You're always going to have to give people some rest or whatever. And that's where we need our number 2s and our number 3s to be as good as our number 1s. And we just didn't have the depth in the past little while. And so that's something we've asked him to do, is really reach out and start getting more of those kids interested and coming out to play, because that's one way we're going to get better. So anyway, I think football overall got a call success with what we were able to see happen. And like you said, we're in games, and hopefully this year we're going to see some. We may turn a corner, and instead of just being in some of those games, now we're going to see the victory on some of those. We got some really good kids coming back, and some good skill people, and another thing that that Tramps has done a fantastic job of, just this last trimester, we did some testing. 40 times was a big deal. We weren't very fast. He had one kid run a sub 4 or a sub 5 40. I think that was a 4.9, which that's for your entire team to only have one kid that's running a sub 540 is not all that good. You want some skill people in there that can do that. By the end of the trimester, the same group of kids, there were 15 kids that ran a sub 540 and a couple of kids that ran a 4.5. So we've really made some strides that way, and he's identified a few things that he needs to work on and our program needs to work on, and he got to work on it, and we're seeing some good results there. So proud of what he's been able to do, especially as a first-year coach, again, young and just hungry and wants to do a good job. See, fall time, so then you got volleyball. Love Coach Brown. She's amazing. She does some really, really fun stuff with our girls volleyball. And the girls volleyball this year was extremely competitive. Again, in our region, really, really tough. They seem like every year they get bigger and taller, and we don't grow tall athletes around here for some reason. I don't know what it is. We just never really have. But in volleyball, they went up against a lot of girls that were big and tall, and we held our own, and we won quite a few games in region, and qualified for the state tournament. Went down to UVU, and they had a really successful year. I really, really like what Coach Brown does with her program. She is about success overall. Obviously, you have to incorporate the idea of winning and being successful on the scoreboard, but it's really more than that, and she does a fantastic job with our Bears for Life protocols. And those girls really appreciate that. I've talked to several of them, and they just said we had a blast. It was a lot of fun, even though maybe we weren't as successful, wins and losses as what they wanted to be. Overall, they had a great time. So that was volleyball. Then we had girls soccer, which girls soccer struggled this year. I'm not really sure why. One reason is we have an extremely tough region. I know that much.
Yes.
Our girls soccer and boys soccer, honestly, in our region, obviously, this year both had, I believe, both girls and boys soccer, the two teams left in the finals were both from our region. That bodes pretty tough for the rest of us in our region. And so, they struggle a little bit, but I was proud of their resiliency. They did a great job. I think their last home game of the season, they held Skyview to a one goal. I think it was 1-0, something like that. And just fought and scrapped and gave effort, and you can't fault kids for that. Sometimes the scoreboard's not going to turn out in your favor. You just have to do the best you can, and they did that. I think that our girls, we had quite a few girls that were academic all-state from that team, so that's something to be proud of, that they were able to do those things as well. So yeah, we do have a new coach moving forward into next year. Happens to be Coach Waite's wife. So we have Coach Waite squared going into next year. And Coach Jessica Waite is a former collegiate soccer player who obviously she works for our school district. She's a speech pathologist she's not a speech pathologist. She's actually she's a school psych. So she tests kids for different levels of difficulty, or if they have a learning disability or whatever. So she works for the school district, and we were excited to get her on board. She's put together what I think could be considered an all-star staff. She has really good people around her, at least from what I understand and that I've met, and I think she's going to do a great job. I know that the girls are super excited with what she's done so far, and the attitudes and some of the X's and O's that she's going to bring to the program. I think she'll do amazing there. Cross country was great. We had two brand new coaches for cross country as well. Coach Wynn and Coach Hurst did a great job with our cross country kids. and they were the boys actually able to win a region title in cross country, and the girls, I believe, finished third, and just had a really good season. The boys were a little disappointed at where they finished at state, because I think they wanted to finish a little bit higher at state than they did, but still finished really well, and ran really well over the whole season. And just that idea of them being region champions. We haven't had a region champion cross country team in quite a while, and so they did a great job that way. And look forward to Coach Wynn and Coach Hurst doing another good job with their kids this year. They did a fantastic job. They really enjoy kids, and they've got a great program, and they've got a great system that if the kids will buy into, they can get some really good results out of. So happy about that. Boys golf. It was interesting, boys golf. Our boys golf coach had to quit due to his job changed. He's a pro out at the golf course, and they added a whole bunch of responsibilities to his job out there. And so right before the season started, he called me up and said, I just can't do my job and then do any justice with the kids. And so we kind of had to scramble. I had like 2 days to come up with a coach. And so we were able to get Jim Thomas, who's also our girls golf coach, and Jim's fantastic. He stepped in, and I owe him like a steak dinner at Maddox for doing that, because I think it put a little stress on him. But he was more than willing to step in. I thought did a great job with the kids. They loved him, and we had one of our athletes finish 7th and got a medal in region, which was great. Riker Bennett. Overall, we were able to improve each week as we went out and golfed, and they did a great job with that. So that was a good season for them as well. Girls tennis. Obviously, Christine and Robert Epling are our coaches, and Robert won't be back next year because, again, job. It's hard. There's a fine line between paraprofessionals and the people that we have in our school district. We don't have enough people in our school district that can do all of the sports. We have 23 sports. There's not enough experts there, or even close, right? Yeah. And so it's imperative that we get people that know what they're doing and can pass that along to their athletes. And Robert and Christine do a fantastic job with that. I think they had 40 girls come out for girls tennis, which is really kind of unheard of. And they both did an absolutely phenomenal job of getting all of those girls matches at some point. Even though in tennis you really only have about.
Do you do cuts?
Well, you can, right? Like could we?
We never ran into that problem.
We never. Yeah, and you got to hand it to them for not. They just said, you know what? If you want to come play tennis, we'll take you, and we'll make you better. And you may not play varsity, obviously, because there's really there's first singles, second singles, third singles, first doubles, and second doubles. That's it. That's everybody that plays varsity all year long. Mm-hmm. Then you have JV down from that, so you're really about 14 kids that really get significant varsity or JV time, and then they've got 40. So now where do you find all of those kids' time, right? Well, they did a great job with that. They reached out to different organizations and clubs and schools and got matches for those kids. And if you talk to any of the tennis kids that stayed with the program a little bit, even though they didn't play as much as they maybe wanted to as far as varsity matches go, they'll all tell you they got better and they love the experience, that's really where we're at with some things, right? Mm-hmm. We were competitive. We had 2 or 3 girls that were right there that pushed for placing in region and state, and a couple of our girls were just right there on the cusp of winning a couple of games at state and maybe moving on. That's off a year ago where we had an athlete play for a state championship in the girls tennis, and so those things are all really good in the fall. And again, they're going to have probably another 40 girls come out this year, and she's already, Coach Epling and Christine has already got a ton of extra matches. They call them C matches, basically, and they're for those kids that just don't always get varsity and JV matches. So yeah, it's a great deal. We want as many kids to play varsity athletics as we can handle, and I think they do a really good job of trying to handle as many kids as want to come out. So anyway, we'll miss Robert this year, but Christine's taken over. And so I don't think we won't miss it as much as if they were both gone. So Christine's great, so I think she'll do a good job there too. So winter sports would be so we've got boys basketball, girls basketball, boys wrestling, girls wrestling, swimming, drill, and cheer. Those would be our sports there. So I'll start with boys basketball. Coach Shaw coming in had a lot of younger kids. I think we only had one senior on the team this year.
I mean, that's across the board. You hardly had
yeah,
any graduates.
Yeah, you're not, for some reason, and the longer you're in the programs, you'll see this ebb and flow and this trend. Like some classes have tons of kids that play everything, and other classes have very few kids that play anything. And I don't know what the issue there is, or if there's something we can attest to. But a lot of times it's different things too. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we only had one basketball player that was a senior this year, and so he had I think he had nine juniors, if I remember right.
Oh yeah.
And then sophomores and freshmen, obviously, and so a little younger team. And I thought we did a really good job, especially early. I thought early, man, we were really competitive early. In fact, we won quite a couple of games we weren't picked to win, and then we're in a couple of other games that we definitely weren't picked to win, and had a chance to win a couple of those. Our region season was probably a little bit of a letdown based on where we were preseason, but again, you look at all those games, and we're in all of them. I think there was only maybe one or two games throughout the region season that I felt like we were, heading into the fourth quarter. Oh man, this is gonna be rough. Mm-hmm. And so, ended up, I believe, fourth in region, and then had a really rough draw with Logan. Logan gives us a ton of matchup problems with their team this year. And just, I don't think that they're that much better than we are, but, there's those teams that just give you problems. And I think
they know how to play.
Yeah, yeah. And for whatever reason, they match up with our players better than anybody else. And Logan, went into Ridgeline the last game of the season and really were a shot or a clock starting away from winning that game. There was some fairly large controversy about whether the clock started at the right time, whatever. They probably should have won the game. Ended up going into overtime. Ridgeline ended up winning. So Logan was really a good team, and so that's a tough matchup for us. We ended up going and losing that game, but Coach Shaw's got a ton of experience coming back. He'll have really 4 of the 5 starters, but even then, our 6th man coming off the bench you could consider a starter. And then, like I said, you got those other kids that are juniors and a couple of sophomores that may get some time this next year. And I think that, he's going to have those kids ready to go. I think they'll be hungry. They're already doing a lot of stuff to prep and get ready for that, and have done some good things in the off season to try to make sure that they're ready for that when it comes. And so it'll be fun to see what Coach Shaw puts out on the floor. He does a good job. Coach Shaw's in it for kids. He genuinely loves the kids. He's out there supporting kids all the time, whether it's in basketball or any other sport. You'll see him and his family at tons of stuff that go on at the school, whether that's baseball or softball or whatever. It's not just guys' sports, it's girls' sports as well. So he's a massive supporter of kids, and that's something that we look for in our coaches. So girls' basketball was a brand new coach this year, Josie Pugsley. I thought she did an absolutely phenomenal job coming in to what we didn't really know what was going to happen. There was a lot of just question marks about what was going on. She did a great job. They were extremely competitive all year. They ended up winning their playoff game against Pineview and going in. They play the number 3 seed in the state as far as 4A and Snow Canyon, and come within, I don't know, 30 seconds.
Yeah, you led all the way through the third quarter.
Yeah, exactly. And give Snow Canyon credit. They were a good team. They won another game after that, right? So it wasn't like they were just not as good as advertised. They were as good as advertised, and we played better.
I think they had a player on that team that was like the highest scoring player in the state.
Yeah, I think going into the state playoffs, they were the highest point getter in the state, and if I remember right, we held them pretty much, to less than their average.
Yeah.
Which, and then, players, I think she had 4 or 5 seniors on the team. They just all banded together. And like I said, it was, like you said, we were leading going into the fourth quarter. And even the fourth quarter with less than a minute left, it's tied. There was probably a foul that could have been called on a free throw that wasn't called. They get kind of a lucky bounce. and then go down and give them credit. We did a great job on defense, and they hit a big shot. I mean, they just did. They had to make a tough shot, and they hit it. And then, I think we ran out of time. I think if we have another minute in that game, I think it's a different story.
Yeah.
And so, Josie did a fantastic job. Those girls did a great job. Couldn't be more proud of what they were able to do, and the season that they were able to have. And so, coming off of probably a less than successful season as far as wins and losses last year, to come into this year with basically kind of the same team and do well, was a tribute to Josie and what she's been able to accomplish with those girls. She's been able to make them feel, important and successfall, and that showed on the court. So Josie did a great job. Swimming, Coach Esplin and Coach Baird, our boys and girls swim coaches, this year were really good. We didn't have a ton. We had quite a few boys swimmers. For some reason this year, generally we have more girl swimmers than we have boys swimmers. For some reason this year we were a little down on numbers with girls this year. So even though we had quite a few girls that were successful, we had one of our girls break the fly record, we just didn't have the depth there to be able to place high in region and in state, because it all goes on where you place, first, second, third, you get points for all of that. Yeah. And so we didn't have a lot of swimmers there, but we had some good swimmers. Shannon Heyer was the girl that broke our school fly record, which is great. But that's been up there for quite a while, I think 15, 20 years, something like that. So she did a great job. And then Danny with the boys did have quite a few kids. And we had a lot of young kids that placed at region and placed at state, and so the future looks really bright for that program. So moving forward, Danny does a fantastic job of recruiting kids to come out and swim. He gets a lot of kids out that have never swam before, and so he does a great job of trying to get kids to try that sport, and then turns them around and makes them pretty good. And that's a tribute to him, because swimming's not easy. People think, oh, you're a swimmer, you're a swimmer, whatever. I know from firsthand experience how much it takes if you want to be a good swimmer, and not from me personally, but my son. And it's a grind. I think probably swimming and wrestling are the two sports where that might take more effort than any other sport we have overall. And so he's able to get those kids to commit to that and do it, and he has a great program, and I think they are really going to. I think both programs, if he can get a few more girls to come out this year, and give us some depth there, I think they both will compete for a region title this year. So we'll see how that works out. But they do a good job. Then you got boys and girls wrestling. Obviously, both boys and girls wrestling took second state this year. For girls, I believe that's 3 in a row that they've been in second. I know 2 for sure. I think it's 3. And then boys moved up a slot from last year. Last year they were third. This year they were second. Had a couple kids. Max Miller, obviously state champion for the boys. Sadie Hardy was a state champion. Abigail Trehorn's a state champion. Eve also was great. She had a fantastic final match too. So those were our 3 state champions there. Several second place finishers as well.
I think we had 6 altogether going in there
into the finals. Yeah, which is phenomenal. Both Coach Smart and Coach Bingham do a great job with their programs. They're competitive every year, always. There's not been a year that Coach Smart has had a team that hasn't been extremely competitive, not only in region but in state. And the same thing with Jason. Obviously, the girls' program's only been around for 3 years, but all 3 years, our program's grown. This year, we almost matched the number of boys that came out total.
Wow.
Which is great. The only other team in the state that had more girls than us, and that was by a very small margin, was Mountain Crest. And so we're right there with where we need to be, and they're going to get over the hump. I'm going to call it this year. I think they got a really, really good shot of winning state title this year, with who they have coming back and some other things that way. So anyway, they were extremely successful, so we're really proud of them. I'll give a shout out to Coach Bingham, who was named 4A Coach of the Year, and deservedly so. Even though we finished second, I think he did everything he could possibly do. I believe we had 4 All-Americans as well, that girls that went to a tournament and they had to finish a certain in the top 4, I believe, to then they could reach All-American status. So we had 4 of those. So shout out to him for not only having the girls that could do that, but also putting them in a situation where they could do that. That's not necessarily mandatory, right?
Yeah.
What we ask coaches to do is to coach high school stuff and be here for those normal meets, right? But he goes above and beyond and makes sure those kids are in those types of tournaments because he wants them to succeed and wants them to get the accolades that they deserve. So drill did a fantastic job all year. They placed really high in all of their competitions, got to region, and were able to finish 3rd in region overall. So going to state, they kind of made us sweat it out just a little bit. We made an at-large bid going into the last day, which we haven't done in a long time. It's been a while since our drill team has made it to the final day in state, and so they were able to do that, and they represented us very, very well. So really proud of our drill team with Coach Jorgensen and what we have. They're able to share athletes right now with our cheer team, which has been a godsend for our drill team to be able to get good dancers and more of them. Right, we had some good dancers, but we were always really, really, really numbers-wise, just not very much. Like sometimes we had 9, sometimes we had 11. It's really hard to compete with 11 dancers on the floor when Ridgeline has 35.
Yeah, you saw that with Logan.
Yeah,
they come up,
right.
They come
Yeah,
up
it's really hard. It doesn't matter how good at dancers they are. There's just not enough of them.
Yeah.
And so with our crossover program, we were able to share some athletes, and I have to give a huge shout out to Coach Birkinshaw and Coach Jorgensen for sharing athletes, because that's not easy to do. They make it work, and there's actually been a whole lot of other programs that have reached out to us and say, how do you do that? And we lay it out for them, and they look at it and go, well, we can't do that. And the reason they can't is because our coaches won't work together. And so our coaches work phenomenally together, and I really appreciate that. So anyway, drill ended up getting the last day. That was awesome. Cheer was amazing all year. It's the first year cheer's been sanctioned and actually has a state meet that's actually sanctioned. And we were able to take 2nd in state for competitive cheer. And our girls did amazing. They were solid all the way through. 2nd place, the first year into that, with where we are this year. It's the first year they've really done anything with all of the stunting and all that as far as being sanctioned. Our squad's always had some of that, and they've always gone to like what they call the national meets, but those are all just unsanctioned meets, and they're great. We usually do really real well with those. The state meets are usually just a little bit different once they get sanctioned. It's a little tougher. The judging's a lot tougher. And so, again, for a lot of those girls that were on the drill team to move back into cheer and put that kind of time in there and help those programs, you have to give it to those girls. The amount of time that they put in, some of those girls would get here at 5 o'clock in the morning, go to drill all the way through first hour, then go to class, and then they have a 6th-hour cheer class. They'd stay, and so they have practice at 6th hour, and then they're not here another 2 hours after school.
They're just living here.
Yeah, they basically might as well set up shop, right? And then they probably did, and so you have to give it to them for the amount of time they put in. It paid off, right? They were able to see some really good success. So spring was insane. We kind of already talked a little bit about spring, but maybe I can just say the wrap up to spring was amazing, right? You had state baseball tournament. Our baseball kids came within 1 out of beating the number 1 team in the state.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah, just an absolute, and here's that happens in baseball. I tell people that's baseball. It's just that's the nature of the game. There's no time on baseball. As long as the team still has an out left, they got a chance to win. Period. That's the way it is. And you got to give it to Snow Canyon. Deegan made an absolutely really a pretty good pitch. It wasn't right down the middle of the strike zone. It was on the outside black, and that kid hit it 360 opposite way, 360 feet at Miller Park. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So you got to tip your cap to him. You got to tip your cap to Deegan for holding them to 1 run. That was the highest offense in the state going in as far as runs scored per game. He held them to 1 run for 6 2/3. That's pretty amazing, right? They still only scored 3. But I think the thing that I'm most proud of that team particularly is the next day. So they got to turn around and play the next day. You have that heartbreaker. You got to get over it. fast because you don't have a lot of time. And they were able to do that. And that game against Desert Hills was a back and forth game all game. It was, we'd go up, they'd go up, they'd tie it, we'd come back and score a run, and just all the way back and forth. Even the seventh inning, we're up 1 run going into the bottom of the seventh inning. We get bases loaded with 2 outs.
Yeah.
And sophomore Holden Potter comes in and strikes out the kid to end the game. And that was an amazing moment. I think that our kids fought hard for that win. Desert Hills was ranked above us all year. We weren't supposed to win that game, especially with who we would consider probably our number 2 and 3 guys on the mound, and we just found a way to win. And so that was amazing to me that they were able to do that. So I think they overall we got a lot of young kids coming back baseball wise. There was only 4 seniors on the team. And so I think there's a lot of contributors that come back there, and obviously Coach Haas is amazing. He does a fantastic job. He's the prototypical high school promoter of kids. Honestly, he believes in kids. He loves kids. He's out there with he goes to almost every game that he can, just to make sure that kids see him support. So love him. Love what he does with his program. And then you got boys lacrosse. I think everybody knows now that Coach Miller has officially resigned, which I talked him out of it once last year. He came in last year and told me he wasn't going to coach, and I said, sorry, I don't accept your resignation. You have to coach another year. And he was gracious enough to do that, so I kind of knew it was coming. But they had a heartbreaker against Judge, their last game here. Obviously, probably wanted that game to go a little differently, but overall, I really thought our lacrosse season this year was great. We competed really well. Obviously, Green Canyon and Skyview in the state championship again, right?
Yeah.
So we're competing against some pretty tough teams, and really both of those games, this year were really close. And I just thought Coach Miller did a fantastic job with those boys, and so we'll look for his replacement soon. We've got some things in the works with there we need to button up before we do that, but that'll happen middle of June. We'll have that done, and then we'll move forward from there. It's no replacing Kodge, but we'll get somebody else in to coach at least, and hopefully that he can stick around the program and help in any way he can. Kodge was good for kids, period. He just did a good job of holding kids accountable, teaching respect, making sure that those guys were ready to play and were able to give their best effort and play their best when they needed to. So we'll miss Kodge. Then you got Coach Shaw coaching the tennis team this year. I made him coach the tennis team this year. We had our tennis coach wasn't able to do it this year, and we just didn't have anybody apply for the tennis job. So I walked up to Coach Shaw's room one day and said, "Hey, how's the tennis coach doing?" And he said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "No, you. How are you doing?" And anyway, he did a great job with it. Reggie will tell you he doesn't know a lot about tennis, but he knows a lot about coaching kids, and that's what he did. And our kids did well. I think we had a couple of kids win some games in the state tournament. And so, overall we did pretty well. We actually won. We won a duel this year, which was the first time in a couple of years we've actually won a region duel. And so, kudos to them for improving. He had, originally we didn't think we'd get more than about 12 kids that come out, and I think he ended up with 20. And so, hopefully we'll build on that next year. Girls golf, they did a fantastic this year. I believe they finished 7th in state, which is really good. We had one of our girls, Tylee Bennett, almost medaled at state. Did medal at region. I think she was 2nd at region actually, 2nd or 3rd, and almost medaled at state. Really was right there. I think she was within 1 stroke of being on the podium there at state. So, again, Coach Thomas, that's Jim Thomas, is our girls coach. Love him. He does a great job with those girls. He has the temperament to be a golf coach, because I think, if you're like me, the only reason you even go back to golfing is you didn't break every club in your bag by the time you get done. Exactly. So I think that takes a special person to coach golf in general, and he does a great job with that. They've got a young team as well. Tylee was just a sophomore this year, so we look forward to some really good things moving forward there. Boys track was 2nd in region by only 10 points. 10 points separated us and Green Canyon, and Green Canyon ended up second in state. So going into that region tournament, we really gave them a run for their money, which was awesome. And we had, again, that's another two first-year coaches. Coach Curtis and Coach Christensen are two first-year coaches with track. And so they did a fantastic job putting a staff together that were able to get those kids ready to go. You know, I believe that it was our high jump record. I think, in fact, I know it was in state. I think the Burgess kid jumped 6'6", which I believe the record going in was 6'4". So he was able to clear 6'6", so we broke a record there. We had a couple of teams finish second in relays, so fantastic job. And shout out to the girls track team. They were the academic state champions this year for 4A, so I think that's an amazing accomplishment for those young ladies. Something that's probably at least as important, if not more important, than obviously being a good athlete is being a good student and being able to carry that into your life after high school. So they did a great job with that. So congratulations there. And then you end up with softball and lacrosse, obviously girls softball and girls lacrosse. You know, girls softball, you know, going down to the state tournament, making it all the way to the state championship series, which is a best of 3 series, getting beat 4-3 the first game. Could have just given up, right? That's a bounce back game the next day. You know that you have to win. Your back's against the wall. You got no choice. If you lose, you're done. I know that several of the girls came in and took extra batting practice when they got home that night and that next day, and went out and absolutely just killed it at the plate against Ridgeline. I think we outscored. Don't quote me here, but I think it was 27-7, something like that. Like we scored 27 runs and they scored 7 runs in the last 2 games.
That could be right.
Something like that.
Yeah, because you almost did the 10-run rule.
Yeah, that would have been a little bit. I gave Bailey a little bit of crap for that because we had bases loaded and they walked the bases loaded and I was sitting up there going, man, this would be really poetic for Bailey, a senior going out, who had a great year, great season, and actually was one of the reasons that we were able to win the last 2 games. She had 3 really clutch hits in that series, and we didn't end up working out, but we'll take the win. So. So anyway, yeah, they did a phenomenal job with that, coming back and winning Coach Bingham's 11th state title. I think you guys reported this, but he's been in 23. He's coached for 24 years. 23 of those there were state tournaments. COVID, obviously, the year of COVID, we didn't have a state tournament.
Yeah. So
he's been in 23 state tournaments. Out of the 23 state tournaments, they've been in 16 finals, which is unheard of.
Yeah.
And then they win 11 out of 16 that they're in. That's again, I don't know how you. There's only so much you can say about that, right? The numbers speak for themselves. And obviously, Coach Bingham announced that he's going to hang it up after 24 years. So we appreciate everything that he's done, leading young ladies for the last 24 years. And so, what a way to ride out into the sunset there and capture a state title and be able to. I know his family. His one son is my age. I went to school with him, and almost his whole family was there to watch the last game. So what a great way to go out. Just great job from those ladies. And then you got the girls lacrosse, who just flat out destroyed people all year. I mean, it wasn't even. I mean, almost got boring, to be honest with you. The only reason it didn't at the end was because they kept yellow carding us. So we kept having girls have to come off the field. They ended up playing 3 men down for like 2 minutes there at the end.
Yeah.
But you got to give it to Mountain Crest for getting there. First of all, they upset Juan Diego, which wasn't supposed to happen, with really only a partial team. They had five seniors that didn't go to that semifinal game because they were graduation. So to get to the finals game, you got to give them a lot of credit, but then you got to look at our girls and just go, holy cow, we're pretty good. They got, and we're going to miss some girls. You had Marley Kierstead scored 250 goals.
Over 250.
Yeah, she hit her 250 mark this year, and well over that. So she's obviously signed at a college back east. And then you've got Savannah Pearson, who is going Midwest to play. You've got Bentley Lorimer, who I know has had offers. Also, Jenna Lacroix's had offers. So you got four girls that could go play lacrosse at the next level, whether they want to or not. It'll be a different story, but that was a pretty amazing team. And Coach Webb, he just has that temperament to be able to work with all of those girls and get the most out of them that he possibly can. And they pour it on. They're not gonna. You better come to play when you're playing Barryville lacrosse.
The foot never comes off the
No,
gas.
no. You better strap it up and you better be ready to go. And he's learned a little bit to when to pull back just a little bit and be able to teach the girls. Okay, listen, here's some situations we can work on when we're up that way. And so I have to give him a lot of credit. That's hard to do sometimes, to be able to take your foot off the gas enough to not just absolutely destroy teams, but then at the same time not competitive, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's a fine line there, and he really has done a good job with that. But man, they absolutely just destroyed. They were one game away from being undefeated again, which would be back-to-back undefeated seasons. That game was a very close game. I think it was a 2-goal game against the number 1 team in the state overall at the time. Mm-hmm. And then we went down and beat, I think, the number 3 team in the state overall in Brighton in overtime, which was a fantastic win for us, and then just ran through the 4A. I would have liked to see us play. Park City ended up winning 5A, and I was at Corner Canyon that won 6A. I know we played Corner Canyon; they were the ones that beat us. But I'd like to see a rematch off of that one. I put a lot of money on our girls on a rematch in that game. I just think it would turn out differently right now. So,
other than scheduling, what would it take? Because we got talking about this after the state tournament for softball. What if you take the 5 or 6 state champion teams and run them together?
Yeah, there's been some talk about that in certain areas in the past. I know when I was a baseball coach, they talked about doing that. They talked about kind of having like an all-star tournament where you say, okay, the state champions and the runners-up, we bring them in and then do a round-robin tournament and see who wins it. And the problem's timing, and especially in the springtime. There's no everybody's graduated, everybody leaves. There's no time to really put that together, and it would be fun. That would be really fun. Replacing Coach Bingham is going to be an interesting process. We opened it up. It officially opened today. We'll leave it open for 2 weeks, and then we'll interview the candidates that we get. And we'll see. I'm excited to see who we get to apply. I think that job's a fantastic job, to be honest with you. There's a lot of tradition in our valley of great softball players. You look at how many softball players have moved on and played at the next level. It's uncanny, the number. And a lot of that is due to our feeder programs that come through. They do a great job of teaching our kids how to play the game. They're polished when they get here. And then, Coach Bingham's obviously been able to take them and turn that around into massive success. So whoever gets the job, I think, set up pretty well, right? Like I don't think that we're gonna miss a beat as far as being competitive. I do think adding. We'll have 26 teams in our classification this next year. That makes it a little tougher. When you only have 13 teams, you're going to have 2 or 3 teams that are really good, and the rest of them are average or below, right? Which is what happened this year. When you have 26 teams, you're going to have 5 or 6 teams that are really good, and so getting past some of those might be more of a challenge, but I think we're up for it. Ridgeline's just going to reload. Obviously, they've got the state leader in home runs in their number 2 hitter there. I forget her name.
Yeah,
Lauren, I think.
on a Wallace.
There you go, Wallace. Yeah, sorry. I knew it was a W. She can flat swing it. I mean, she's fun to watch, obviously. But we only graduated 2. Obviously Kate Daly was phenomenal for us, and Bailey Sorensen. Those are the 2 seniors that we graduated. So everybody else is underclassmen. So we're gonna be pretty good too.
Yeah.
Obviously, replacing Kate's tough because she was kind of the cornerstone. When in softball, pitching is the premium. If you got a pitcher, you got a chance every game, no matter what. And it's even a little bit different than baseball. Baseball, there's pitching restrictions. You only throw one guy about every 4 days at best, right? In softball, you saw Kate threw all but 2 or 3 innings in the whole tournament, I think.
Yep.
Something like that, which that was a Herculean effort, and man, you got to give it to her. It's got to be pretty sweet for her to do that on the field she's going to be playing on,
Oh, yeah.
after high school. That's got to be a sweet feeling to show the coaches, hey, I'm the real deal here. Let's go. So that was fun. But yeah, trying to replace Calvin is going to be that's going to be tough. I don't know what that's going to look like yet, but it'll be a fun process, I think, and something that we'll get going really quickly. We will interview on that in 2 weeks. That's the plan. I really feel like we need to give whoever gets that job an opportunity to do some things over the summertime. Obviously, they're not going to be able to completely revamp the way that the situation is right now, but at least have some contact with their athletes over the summertime, develop a fall program that they can utilize for those girls that don't do a fall sport, and then obviously have the open gyms and open Bear Center time in the wintertime to prep. And so I'm excited. There's some really great candidates that I know that I hope apply. And I think it's going to be, honestly, I really think it's going to be a really tough decision. If all of the people that I hope apply, I'm glad it's not only me making the decision. There'll be a committee that goes with that, right? That won't just be on me. And so it's going to be interesting, but also at the same time, I think it's going to be a fun process, and I think it will be a fun situation for our athletes going into next year. Change isn't always bad. It's change, and again, Calvin's done a phenomenal job.
Can you fill a boys volleyball team?
Yes, we will have
next question.
Yes, yeah. I don't know if we should, as far as just number. It's amazing. Spring is insane. There's 9 sports already, right? So we're sharing so many athletes, and we've talked to the state about that and said, we got to move some sports off of spring. So they're talking about doing some things like moving girls golf to fall, moving boys tennis to fall. So boys and girls tennis, boys and girls golf will both be in the fall, which kind of makes sense. Mm-hmm. Like, it just does. They've also talked about the possibility of moving boys volleyball to the fall, and kind of playing boys and girls volleyball. Their reasoning right now is they can't find enough officials to do both. And I think there's a way around that. I think there's plenty of people that could come up with some pretty creative solutions to that problem. Mm-hmm. So we'll see what happens. But moving into going into next year, we will have a boys volleyball team. Coach Brown will coach that. Her son Heath is really good. He's already had about 3 different D1 schools contact him about playing volleyball at the next level. So we may be pretty good there, right? Yeah. It never hurts to have a D1 volleyball guy. Like, you could just set him up and let him kind of take over. But they had a club team this year that did pretty well not for our very, very first year, and not really knowing a whole lot about some of those kids. Maybe have played a little bit of like rec volleyball, but we've never really had a competitive volleyball team. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But yeah, we will have boys volleyball, and see if we can figure out how many buses to take and all that stuff. It's the springtime is crazy. The nice part about boys volleyball in the spring, at least, is we shouldn't lose any games because it's inside, right?
So that'll probably be the only sport going on.
Exactly. Awesome.
Well, the future looks bright.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited for next year. We have a really great coaching staff. We're going to, like I said, we're looking to implement a few more things that add to the culture and the experience that the kids get here. And it's going to be a challenge for us. It really is, with as many teams that are coming into our classification, and us being, like I said, we're in the bottom 3 numbers wise. So it's going to be a challenge for us, but I guarantee nobody's feeling sorry for us. So we better not feel sorry for ourselves. We just got to go to work and see what we can do, go compete, and have fun doing it. And hopefully the kids learn a lot of life lessons, and we can get out there and represent our school and our families and our area and our community well. Huge shout out to the support from our community. We have a massive support structure in place here, not only monetarily, but also just fan base. We travel better than anybody in the state. The support here is amazing. It's a great place to be. It's a great place for kids to have an opportunity to learn from athletics, which is really what it's about. Do we want to win? Absolutely want to win. No one that's why we compete, right? Yeah. You compete to try to win. But if winning is the end all be all, then there's very few teams that win. if that's your only measure of success, there's very few teams in the state that win, right? And so you have to temper that desire to win with what is it that our kids are getting out of being involved in athletics. There's some phenomenal statistics out there about how many, especially for female athletes, how many female, if you're an athlete in high school, it translates to 70% more will graduate from college if you're an athlete in high school. 70% increase of graduating college if you were a high school athlete for female sports. 50 is like something like 50% of that with guys. Jobs as far as like people who are CEOs, CFOs, or managers in fairly large companies across the board, almost all of them played athletics at a high level in high school. And so those are the things that we're really trying to teach kids and make sure that they have some skills moving forward, which is kind of where our Bears for Life theme comes in, and we're able to hopefully help teach some of those skills. And I think if we can do that, then that makes us successful, and it makes us a culture that people want to be part of. And you can see that with the numbers that we have in almost all of our sports right now. And yeah, we have room to grow, and so we'll identify those areas and we'll get to work on it.